Operation, take everything from Amara. That's what the first page said. Written in blue ink, in my best friend's handwriting, in a notebook I found under the passenger seat of her car. I wasn't snooping. I need you to know that. I was looking for a phone charger. Sienna had lent me her car for the afternoon. Mine was in the shop. She tossed me the keys like it was nothing. Glove box has a charger, she said. It didn't. The glove box had receipts and old mint. So I reached under the seat, and I found a notebook, spiral-bound, green cover, the kind you buy at a drugstore for $2. Nothing special about it, except that it contained a 3-year plan to destroy my life. I sat in her car in my own driveway, engine off, seat belt still on, and I read every page. There were 37 pages, front and back, dated, organized by month. Sienna had written it like a project plan. Timelines, milestones, little check boxes in the margins. Some of them were checked. Page 1, Phase 1, isolation. Page 12, Phase 2, marriage. Page 23, Phase 3, business. Phase 1 had started 3 years ago, the year I met her, the year she walked into my interior design studio. She said she needed help with her apartment. She said she loved my taste. She said she'd never met anyone like me. I thought I'd found a best friend. I'd found a strategist. I should tell you what was in that notebook. Not all of it. You don't need all of it. But enough so you understand what I was holding. Under Phase 1 isolation, Sienna had written, get close to a become indispensable. Slowly remove other friendships. Method. Schedule conflicts. Rumors. Competing loyalty tests. She listed my friends by name. Rachel. Dina. Keiko. Next to each name was a strategy. Rachel. Tell A that Rachel said her designs were overpriced. Dina. Schedule plans with A on same night as Dina's events. Keiko. Imply Keiko is jealous of A's business success. I read those names. I read those strategies. And I felt my stomach drop. Because every single one of them had worked. Rachel and I stopped talking 2 years ago. After Sienna told me Rachel said my work was mediocre. Rachel never said that. I know that now. Dina drifted away. She stopped inviting me to things. Or maybe I stopped being available. Because I was always with Sienna. Keiko and I had a fight about nothing. A misunderstanding that got bigger. An email that was forwarded out of context. Bekänna. I sat in that car and I counted. 3 friendships, 3 years. All of them disassembled by a woman with a $2 notebook. Phase 2 was worse. Marriage weaken foundation. Create doubt about Jared. Method. Plant seeds of jealousy. Suggest therapy. A goes alone equals more vulnerable. Drop hints about Jared's coworker, Mia. Jared is my husband. Mia is his coworker. Nothing ever happened between them. But I spent 6 months convinced something might. Because Sienna kept mentioning her. Casually. Oh, Jared's working late with Mia again? I saw Mia's photo on his page. She's really pretty, isn't she? I almost asked Jared for a separation. I almost blew up my marriage. Over sentences manufactured in blue ink. I closed the notebook. I sat in the car for 11 minutes. I know because I watched the clock. 11 minutes of sitting very still, breathing, thinking, deciding. In minute 1, I wanted to scream. In minute 2, I wanted to cry. Calling her right then, demanding an explanation, saying every word that was boiling inside me. In minute 4, I went quiet. The anger dropped from my chest to my stomach. It stopped being hot. It became something else, something dense, something patient. In minute 5, I started thinking, not feeling, thinking. In minute 6, I photographed every page, front and back, all 37 pages. My hands were shaking, but the photos were clear. In minute 7, I put my phone down. In minute 8, I looked at my house. Through the windshield, the house Jared and I bought together. The house I designed room by room. The porch where my mom drinks tea on Sunday mornings. In minute 9, I decided. In minute 10, I breathed. In minute 11, I was ready. Then I put the notebook back under the seat, exactly where I found it. I went inside. I made dinner. I didn't say a word. Because here's what Sienna didn't account for in her little project plan. She planned for a woman who would break. She planned for a woman who would scream and cry. She planned for a woman who would confront and crumble. She didn't plan for a woman who would read 37 pages, put the notebook back, and start her own plan. Let me back up. You need to know who I am before this makes sense. I'm Amara. I'm 34. I run an interior design business. Or I did. Or I do. It depends on where we are in this story. I started the business when I was 26, 8 years ago, with a laptop, a measuring tape, and a portfolio I built from projects nobody paid me for. I redesigned my cousin's living room for free. I did my mom's kitchen. I staged my neighbor's house when she was trying to sell. She got 3 offers in a week. That neighbor told a friend. That friend told a coworker. That coworker had a sister who was renovating a brownstone in the city. That's how it starts. Not with a business plan. Not with investors. With a measuring tape and a favor. I remember the exact moment I decided this was real. I was sitting on the floor of my cousin's apartment, surrounded by paint swatches. 12 shades of white, and none of them were right. My cousin said, "They're all white." I said, "No. That one is warm. That one is cold. That one is sad." She looked at me like I'd lost my mind, but she let me pick the one I wanted. And when the room was finished, she stood in the doorway and said, "It feels different in here. Like the room is happier." That's when I knew. I could make rooms feel things. I could make spaces speak. I remember the first time a stranger wrote me a check, $400, for a living room consultation. I sat in my car afterward and cried. Not because of the money, because someone I didn't know believed I could do this. I called my mom. She picked up on the first ring. She always picks up on the first ring. $400, Mom. For what? For telling someone to move their couch 3 feet to the left and change their curtains. She laughed. A big laugh. The kind my mom does where you can hear her slapping her knee. "Baby," she said, "you've been rearranging my furniture since you were 9 years old. It's about time someone paid you." She was right. I'd been doing this my whole life. Moving things, fixing things. Walking into a room and knowing immediately what was wrong with it. Not wrong like broken. Wrong like off-key. Like a song where one note doesn't belong. I could hear that note. I could fix it. And people could feel the difference even when they couldn't name it. By 28, I had an office. Small. A converted storefront with big windows. I painted the walls sage green and hung a brass mirror by the door. Every client who walked in said the same thing. "This is exactly what I want my house to feel like." That's the trick of good design. You make people feel something before you show them anything. By 30, the business was real. I had an assistant. I had repeat clients. I was doing full renovations, kitchens, living rooms, nurseries, home offices. I was in a local magazine twice. The headline said, "Designer to Watch." I cut that headline out and pinned it to my office wall, right next to the first check I ever received. Jared and I got married when I was 29. He's an engineer, quiet, the kind of man who builds things with his hands on weekends and reads the same book twice because he liked it the first time. We met at a friend's cookout. He was flipping burgers and explaining to no one in particular how the grill's heat distribution was uneven. I told him he was holding the spatula wrong. He told me nobody holds a spatula wrong. We argued about spatulas for 20 minutes. Then he asked for my number. Jared is not dramatic. He doesn't raise his voice. When something bothers him, he gets quiet. When something really bothers him, he goes to the garage and builds a shelf. We have a lot of shelves. I loved my life at 31. I want you to understand that. Not in a boastful way, in a grateful way, in a pinch me way, in a how did I get here from a cousin's apartment floor way? Business was growing, marriage was good. The kind of good where you don't think about it, where it just works, like a house with good bones, until someone starts cracking it. I had friends, real ones, I thought. Rachel, who I'd known since college, who once drove through a thunderstorm to bring me cold medicine, who always bought the wrong kind but showed up anyway. Dina, who I met at a design conference, who argued with a speaker about color theory and got a standing ovation from exactly one person. Keiko, my neighbor who became like a sister, who left homemade soup on my doorstep without knocking, who never asked for anything back, who had the quietest laugh and the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. I had a mom who called every Sunday, a husband who built me shelves, a career I'd grown from nothing. And then Sienna walked in. It was a Tuesday, October, the kind of day where the light comes through the windows, all gold. I was rearranging fabric samples when the door chimed. She stood there in a camel coat, hair in a low bun. She had this way of standing like she'd been photographed before and knew her angles. "I'm Sienna," she said. "I just moved here. My apartment looks like a waiting room, and I heard you're the person to fix that." She smiled. And I don't know how to explain this without sounding naive, but her smile made me feel chosen. Some people have that gift. They look at you like you're the only interesting person in the room, like they've been waiting to meet you, like everything you say is worth hearing. I know now that it's a technique. I know now that she practiced it. Page 3 of the notebook said, "Mirror her energy. Compliment the work first, then the person. Make her feel seen." She made me feel seen, and I didn't know I needed that. See, here's the thing about running your own business. You're always selling. You're always performing. You're always the confident one in the room. Nobody asks if you're tired. Nobody asks if you're scared. You just keep showing up with your fabric samples and your mood boards and your steady voice. Sienna asked. She asked how I was. She asked if the business was hard. She asked if I ever felt lonely doing it alone. And I told her things. I told her about the imposter syndrome, about the client who made me cry in a bathroom, about the months when the money was tight, about the fear that maybe I wasn't good enough. She listened like she was absorbing me, like my words were nutrients and she was starving. She remembered every detail. A week later, she texted me, "Hey, thinking about that client who made you cry. Forget her. You're a genius." I screenshot that text. I saved it. I thought, this is what friendship feels like. Someone who remembers your pain and reaches back for it when you're not expecting kindness. But she wasn't reaching back for me. She was cataloging me. Every fear I shared was filed away. Every insecurity I admitted was noted and dated. On page 5 of the notebook, A's fears, not being taken seriously, imposter syndrome, losing clients to bigger firms. She stored my weaknesses the way a locksmith stores keys, not to protect me, to open me later. I didn't know she was taking notes. Not that day, but later became a weapon in that notebook. The friendship moved fast. Sienna was everywhere. Coffee on Tuesdays, wine on Fridays. She came to my office with lunch. She texted me good morning. She remembered things nobody remembers. The name of my first dog. The color I painted my childhood bedroom. My mom's birthday. Within 3 months, she was my closest friend. Within 6 months, she was my emergency contact. She brought Jared a birthday gift. A nice one. A leather-bound notebook. That detail makes me sick now. A notebook. She gave my husband a notebook. She came to my mom's house for dinner. She complimented the food. She helped clear the table. She asked my mom about her garden. My mom smiled politely. Later, on the phone, she said, "She's very thorough." I thought Mom was being difficult. Mom was being observant. Sienna was so present in my life that I stopped noticing the edges of her. The way her compliments always came right before a request. The way she'd say, "You work too hard," and then offer to help with my client list. The way she'd mention other designers and then say, "But they're not as good as you." Flattery is the scaffolding of every good con. You build the person up so the fall hits harder. But I didn't know it was a con. I thought it was Tuesday coffee. And my other friendships? They started to shrink. Not all at once. Not dramatically. The way a sweater shrinks in the wash. You don't notice until you try to put it on and it doesn't fit anymore. Rachel was first. Rachel, who I'd known for 12 years, who held my hair when I was sick in college, who drove 3 hours to surprise me on my birthday. Sienna told me Rachel had said my designs were overpriced and pretentious. She said it gently, with a concerned face. "I just think you should know what people say behind your back." I confronted Rachel. Rachel denied it. Rachel got hurt that I believed it. I got hurt that she was lying. Except she wasn't lying. She never said those words. Those words were manufactured, written first in blue ink on page 6 of a notebook. That was never spoken. Dina was next. Sienna started scheduling plans with me on the same nights Dina had events. A book club on Dina's birthday. A girls' night on the same evening as Dina's gallery opening. "Oh no, is that tonight? I totally forgot." "I'm so sorry. We already have reservations." After enough missed events, Dina stopped inviting me. I told myself she was pulling away. I didn't realize I was being pulled. Then Kaiko. Sweet, quiet Kaiko, who brought me soup when I was sick, who watered my plants when we traveled. Sienna forwarded an email from me to Keiko, but she edited it first, added a line I never wrote. Something about Keiko being too much sometimes. Kaiko saw that line. She never confronted me. She just stopped coming over. 3 friends, surgically removed from my life by a woman who smiled at me every day and asked how I was doing. I'm telling you this part slow because I need you to feel what I felt reading that notebook. Every lost friendship, every confused silence, every unanswered text, all of it had an author. And the author was sitting across from me at brunch every Sunday, ordering eggs with hot sauce and laughing at my jokes. Now you're caught up. Now you know what the notebook held. Now you know what I put back under the passenger seat. Now you know why I went inside and made dinner like nothing had happened. Because I had work to do. The first person I called was my mom. Not Jared. Not a lawyer. My mom? Because my mom knows things. She's 71. She's been through a bad marriage, a worse business partner, and a neighbor who tried to claim half her garden. She's seen every kind of betrayal that doesn't make the news. I called her the next morning, a Wednesday. Sienna had a dentist appointment. I knew her schedule better than my own, 'cause she made sure I did. Another strategy, probably. "Mom," I said, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to not say, 'I told you so.'" She was quiet for 3 seconds. My mom is never quiet. "What did she do?" Mom said. She didn't ask who. She already knew. Moms always know. I told her about the notebook. I read parts of it to her over the phone. Phase 1, Phase 2, the names, the strategies, the little check boxes. She didn't interrupt. She let me get through all of it. Then she said, I never liked her smile. "That's it." That's all she said at first. It never reached her eyes, Amara. A real smile starts in the eyes. Hers started in her brain. My mom doesn't have a college degree. She has something better. She has 40 years of watching people and never forgetting what she saw. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm not going to confront her." "Good. I'm going to beat her." Longer pause this time. "Okay," Mom said. "Tell me what you need." Here's what I needed. The business was in my name, Amara Cole Interiors. But over the past 2 years, Sienna had made herself useful. She helped with scheduling. She offered to manage my social media. She introduced herself to clients as my business partner. I never gave her that title. She just started using it. And I never corrected her. Because she was my best friend. Because I trusted her. Because I was an idiot. I wasn't an idiot. I was a good person who assumed other people were too. There's a difference. But it doesn't feel like one when you're sitting in a car reading a blueprint for your own destruction. Phase 3 of the notebook was the business. Position self as co-owner. Establish client relationships independently. When ready, approach key clients directly. Tell them A is stepping back. Transition, business under new entity. She was going to steal my company, not with a lawsuit, not with a hostile takeover. With a smile and a lie told one client at a time. So here's what I did. Mom and I set up a new company, a new LLC. We filed the paperwork on a Thursday afternoon while Sienna was at a yoga class. I know that sounds paranoid, tracking her schedule, planning around her calendar, but that's what she taught me. The new LLC was called Cole Creative. Different name. Same me. Same work. Same clients. But now, protected. Mom co-signed as the registered agent. She put on her reading glasses and reviewed every line of the paperwork. She asked the filing clerk 3 questions that made the clerk look nervous. My mom is thorough, I said. Your mom is terrifying, the clerk said. Mom smiled. That one reached her eyes. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved everything. Client contracts, vendor agreements, my design portfolio, my project files, insurance policies, supplier relationships, even the domain name for my website. Everything transferred to Cole Creative. I called each vendor personally. Every fabric supplier, every furniture maker, every contractor I'd worked with over the past 8 years. I told them I was restructuring, which was true. I told them the new name was Cole Creative, which was true. I did not tell them why. Because the truth was too strange to say out loud to a man who sells wallpaper. Just updating the business structure, I said. Sure thing, Amara, they said. Nobody questioned it. Because I'd spent 8 years being reliable, being honest, being the person who paid on time and returned calls and showed up when she said she would. Reputation is a savings account. You deposit into it every day you show up and do your job. And when you need to make a withdrawal, the balance is there. Sienna had no balance. She had a notebook. I did it at night. After Sienna's goodnight text, after her little heart emoji at 11 p.m., I'd close that text thread and open my laptop and move another piece of my life to safety. It felt like packing an escape bag, except I wasn't running. I was fortifying. Some nights I'd finish a transfer and just sit there, staring at the screen, thinking about all the times Sienna sat in my office and asked about my client list. So who's your biggest account right now? What's the budget on that project? Have you thought about expanding? Every question was reconnaissance. Every coffee was an interrogation. Every hug was a measurement. I had been living inside a strategy and calling it a friendship. That thought kept me up at night. Not the anger, the embarrassment. The feeling that I should have known, that I should have seen it, should be smarter than this. But Mom said something that I keep coming back to. She said, "You weren't stupid. You were kind. Those are not the same thing. Stupid people miss warning signs. Kind people ignore them because they want to believe the best." I wrote that down on a piece of paper, not in a notebook. I don't trust notebooks anymore. The hardest part came next. I had to tell Jared, here's what you need to understand about my husband. Jared liked Sienna. He thought she was good for me. He thought she was supportive and fun and the kind of friend every woman needs. He said that once. I'm glad you have Sienna. You seem happier, and I was happier. Because I didn't know the happiness was engineered. I told him on a Saturday night. The kids were at my mom's. I made his favorite dinner. Baked chicken with rosemary, roasted potatoes, the good bread from the bakery downtown. He knew something was up. I don't make the good bread on a random Saturday. I need to show you something, I said. I'd taken photos of every page of the notebook, all 37 pages, front and back, on my phone, the day I found it, in the car. Before I put it back, I hadn't told him that part. I hadn't told anyone except Mom. I handed him my phone. He swiped through the pages. Slowly at first, then festa, and he went back to the beginning and read them again. His face did something I'd never seen. Not anger exactly, something quieter than anger, something that builds in the back of a man's jaw. She wrote my name, he said. She wrote all our names. He put the phone down. He looked at the ceiling. He does that when he's processing, like the answers are up there somewhere near the light fixture. How long have you known? He asked. 3 weeks. 3 weeks? I needed a plan first. He looked at me. Really looked the kind of look that takes inventory, checking for damage, checking for cracks. Are you okay? He said. That's when I cried. Not before. Not when I found the notebook. Not when I called my mom. Not during the 2 weeks of midnight file transfers. When Jared asked if I was okay, that's when I broke, because I wasn't okay. But it was handling it. And sometimes the hardest part of handling something is when someone gives you permission to stop. He held me in the kitchen. The potatoes were getting cold. The bread was just sitting there. And I cried into his shirt and told him everything. About Rachel. About Dina. About Keiko. About Mia. About the 6 months I spent wondering if my husband was cheating on me because a woman with a notebook decided that would be useful. Jared's jaw did that thing again. She used Mia's name, he said. She used everyone's name. He was quiet for a long time. The chicken went cold, too. We didn't eat that night. We just sat at the table and he read every page again and I watched his face go through every stage of something that doesn't have a name. What do you need me to do? He said. Same words as my mom. What do you need? I married the right man. I need you to act normal around her, I said. That's going to be hard. I know. She comes to our house, Amara. I know. She sat at this table. I know. He looked at the cold chicken. He looked at me. Okay, he said. I'll act normal. But when this is over, I'm building the biggest shelf you've ever seen. I laughed. First time in 3 weeks. Felt like cracking a window in a room that had been sealed shut. Now came the part I dreaded most. The friends, Rachel, Dina, Keiko. I'd lost them because of lies. Now I had to find them with the truth. Rachel was first. Because she'd been hurt the longest. I called her on a Tuesday. She didn't answer. I called again on Wednesday. She didn't answer. I texted, I know you have no reason to talk to me, but I found something, and you deserve to see it. She called back Thursday. Her voice was careful, guarded. The way you talk to someone who burned you once. What did you find? She said. I told her. All of it. The notebook. The plan. The line about her. The exact words Sienna wrote next to her name. Rachel was silent for so long I checked to see if the call dropped. She told you I said your work was mediocre, Rachel said. Yes, I never said that. I know that now. I said your work was incredible. I told Sienna that at a dinner. I said you were the most talented person I knew. Pause. And she turned that into mediocre? She turned everything into something else. Rachel cried. I cried. We cried on the phone like we were 19 again. Like nothing had ever gone wrong. Except everything had gone wrong and we were just now finding out why. Dina was next. Dina is tougher than Rachel. Dina doesn't cry. Dina gets angry. Dina once returned a salad at a restaurant because the croutons were disrespectful. That's the kind of woman Dina is. I met her for coffee, showed her the notebook photos, showed her the page with her name, showed her the scheduling strategy. Dina stared at the screen. Then she looked up at me. I'm going to need a minute, she said. She took 3. So every time I invited you somewhere and you couldn't come, Sienna had already made plans with me. On the same night, every time, it's in the notebook. She tracked your events. Dina put her coffee down, picked it up, put it down again. I thought you didn't care about me anymore. I thought you stopped inviting me. We sat with that. Two women on opposite sides of the same lie, both thinking the other walked away, when really someone had just closed the door between us and we couldn't see through it. What are you going to do to her? Dina asked. Something appropriate. Define appropriate. You'll see. Dina smiled. That smile scared me a little. But in a good way. Keiko was the hardest, because Keiko doesn't do Keiko is the kind of person who apologizes when you step on her foot. She didn't want to meet. She didn't want to talk on the phone. She said she'd moved on. She said it was fine. I drove to her house anyway. I stood on her porch with my phone in my hand and the notebook photos ready. She opened the door and looked at me like I was a weather pattern she wasn't sure about. 5 minutes, I said. If you still want me to leave after that, I'll go. She let me in. Her house smelled like jasmine. It always does. I'd forgotten that. 3 years away from jasmine because of a woman with a notebook. I showed Keiko the email strategy. The one where Sienna forwarded my email with an added line. Too much sometimes. I showed her the original email on my phone. The one I actually sent. No added line. No, too much. Just me asking Keiko if she wanted to come to dinner on Friday. Keiko read both emails. The real one and the altered one. Side by side, her hands were shaking. I read that line over and over, she said. I kept thinking, what did I do that was too much? You didn't do anything. I changed myself, Amara. I started being quieter. I stopped dropping by. I stopped bringing soup because I thought, you thought I was too much. I reached for her hand. She let me take it. You're not too much, I said. You're exactly enough. You always were. She put her head on my shoulder. We sat on her couch surrounded by jasmine and 3 years of unnecessary silence. So now I had my team. Mom, who was already in. Jared, who was building shelves and holding it together. Rachel, who wanted justice. Dina, who wanted blood. And Keiko, who just wanted to understand. And I had a plan. But first, I had to keep performing. That was the hardest part. Harder than the paperwork. Harder than the phone calls. Harder than the tears. I had to look Sienna in the face and pretend. Every day. Coffee on Tuesdays. I showed up. I smiled. I laughed at her jokes. I told her about my week. I let her give me advice I knew was designed to weaken me. You seem stressed, she'd say. Maybe you should take a break from work. I can handle some of your clients while you rest. I bet you can, I thought. That's so sweet of you, I said. Wine on Fridays. She'd come over. Sit on my couch. Drink from my glasses. Pet midol. Ask about Jared. How's Jared? Working late again? He's fine. I just worry about you. With Mia always around. Mia transferred to another office, I said. She had, months ago. Sienna knew that, but she kept mentioning her anyway, like a song stuck on repeat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the coffee table and throw her wine at the wall and say, I found your notebook. But I didn't, because a flip is satisfying for a moment. A plan is satisfying forever. So I smiled. I poured more wine. I waited. There was one night that almost broke me. Sienna came over for dinner. She sat across from Jared. She passed him the salt. She laughed at his joke about the shelves. And then she looked at me with what I used to think was love. I don't know what I'd do without you, she said. I almost choked on my water. Same, I said. And I meant it, but not the way she thought. Jared's hand found mine under the table. He squeezed, not a comforting squeeze, a hold-on squeeze, a don't blow it squeeze. After she left that night, Jared and I stood in the kitchen and didn't speak for a full minute. "How much longer?" he said. "Not much." "Good, because I'm running out of shelves." 5 weeks into my counterplan, Sienna started phase 3. I knew it was coming. The notebook told me. And watching it arrive are two different experiences. Like knowing a storm is forecast versus feeling the first drop on your skin. She started with small moves, showing up at client meetings uninvited, introducing herself as my associate, not partner anymore. Associate? She was distancing herself from me, getting ready to be independent, building her own reputation on the back of mine. She took photos of my project boards. I saw her do it. Phone angled at the wall when she thought I was in the other room. But I was watching from the hallway. My own hallway. My own office. My own work. I let her take the photos. Because none of those boards showed the real projects anymore. I'd moved the active work to co-creative. What was on those boards was old. Finished. Nothing she could use. Let her photograph ghosts. I even left a few things out for her to find on purpose. Old proposals with outdated pricing. A mock-up for a project that had already been completed. Breadcrumbs leading nowhere. I'm not proud of how good I got at pretending. At smiling across the table while she photographed my walls. At saying, "Great idea," when she suggested I should delegate more, but I'll tell you what. When someone writes a 37-page plan to destroy your life, you learn to act. You learn to hold your face still. You learn to pour wine with steady hands while your heart is pounding like a fist against a door. I became an actress. Not the kind who wins awards, the kind who survives. Then came the Whitfield Project. The Whitfield Project was the biggest job of my career. Full interior redesign of a 6-bedroom estate. Budget that made my accountant sweat. The kind of project that gets you in a national magazine, not a local one. Margaret Whitfield was the client. 70 years old. Sharp as a scalpel. The kind of woman who could tell if your fabric was real silk by touching it once. I'd been working with Margaret for 4 months. She trusted me. She liked my work. She told me once, "You make spaces that feel like they're breathing." That's the best compliment I've ever received. Sienna knew about the Whitfield Project. Of course she did. She was in my life like water in a sponge. Everywhere. Filling every gap. And on page 29 of the notebook, there it was. Whitfield Project key target. Approach M. After establishing credibility. Tell her Amara is closing the business. Offered to take over the project as a favor to an old friend. She was going to tell Margaret Whitfield that I was closing down, that she was doing me a kindness by stepping in. The audacity. Truly. The sheer, breathtaking audacity. I'll say this for Sienna. She wasn't lazy. She was wrong, and she was cruel, but she was not lazy. The plan was detailed. The execution was patient. The notebook was thorough. But she made one mistake. One fatal $2 mistake. She left the notebook in the car. I was ready for phase 3. I'd been ready for weeks. I just needed her to make her move. And she did. Margaret Whitfield called me on a Friday afternoon. Her voice was measured. "Careful. Amara," she said. "I received a call today. From your associate, Sienna. She said you're closing your business. She offered to complete my project under her own firm." I sat down. Not because I was surprised. Because the moment had actually arrived. After weeks of preparation, weeks of paperwork, weeks of pretending. It was here. "Margaret," I said, "I'm not closing my business." I didn't think so. "In fact, I have something to show you. Would you be available for dinner this Thursday?" "I'm intrigued," Margaret said. "I'm always available for intrigue." I liked Margaret. I really did. Now here's where it gets good. I planned the dinner myself. At a restaurant downtown. The kind with cloth napkins and bread that comes warm. I reserved a private dining room. Guest list. Margaret Whitfield. 2 other clients, an editor from the regional design magazine, and Sienna. I invited Sienna last, casually. Hey, I'm doing a little client dinner Thursday. Nothing fancy. Wanna come? It almost broke my heart, because I realized she thought this was her opportunity. She thought this was the moment she'd been working toward for 3 years. She showed up in a blazer, new earrings. She'd gotten a blowout. I was wearing the same dress I wore to my first client meeting. Navy blue, simple, lucky. Mom wanted to come. I told her no. This is my room, I said. My moment. Fine, she said. But call me the second it's over. Jared offered to wait in the car. I told him to go home and build a shelf. He kissed my forehead and said, "You've got this." He paused at the door. Amara? Yeah? Biggest shelf ever. I mean it. I know you do. He left. I stood in my bedroom. I looked in the mirror. Navy blue dress. Simple gold earrings. The ones Mom gave me when I opened the business. Hair down. No special effort. I didn't need to look powerful. I needed to look like myself, because that was the whole point. I was myself. I had always been myself. And Sienna had spent 3 years trying to replace me with a version she could control. That version didn't exist. Tonight she'd find that out. I walked into that restaurant knowing exactly how the night would end. I paused at the door. I took one breath, the kind of breath you take before you jump off something high. Not because you're scared, because you want to remember the last second of standing still. I thought about the car, the glove box, the phone charger that wasn't there, the notebook that was. I thought about 3 years, 3 phases, 37 pages, and a $2 cover price for the blueprint of my destruction. I thought about Rachel crying on the phone, Dina's coffee cup going up and down, Keiko's shaking hands, Jared's jaw, Mom's reading glasses. All of it led here, to a restaurant with cloth napkins and a private room, and a woman in a blazer who thought tonight was her graduation. I opened the door. Sienna was already there, chatting with Margaret, being charming, being Sienna. Margaret caught my eye across the room and gave me a look that said, "I see what's happening. Proceed." 70 years old, sharp as a scalpel. Ve'ate. We talked about the Whitfield project. We talked about design trends. We talked about the magazine feature. Sienna was glowing. She thought this was her debut. After dessert, after the coffee came, after the editor had turned on her recorder for what she thought was an interview about the Whitfield estate, I stood up. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I also want to address something that I think everyone at this table has heard in some form or another. Sienna smiled. Encouraging, supportive, the perfect best friend. Some of you may have heard that I'm closing my business. Sienna's smile held, but her eyes moved, just slightly. Avflicker. I'm not closing my business, but someone has been telling people that I am. The smile started to fade. 3 years ago, someone walked into my studio and became my closest friend. And while she was being my friend, she was also writing this. I reached into my bag. I pulled out the photocopies, not the originals. I'm not reckless, but high-quality copies. Clear enough to read every word. Clear enough to see the handwriting. I placed them on the table. The room got quiet. The kind of quiet that has weight. Margaret picked up the first page. Read it? Passed it to the client beside her. Who read it? Passed it to the editor. Who read it? And looked at Sienna. Everyone looked at Sienna. I watched her face. I watched the exact moment she understood what was happening. The color left her cheeks first. Then her hands went still. Then her mouth opened. Just slightly. The beginning of a word that never formed. "That's my notebook," she whispered. Nobody spoke. That's private. It's a plan to steal my business," I said. "That's not private. That's evidence." The editor leaned forward. Is this real? I looked at Sienna. Tell her. Sienna's mouth moved again. Nothing came out. Tell her, Sienna. You don't understand, she said. It's not what it looks like. The oldest excuse in the world. From a woman who'd planned everything except this moment. 37 pages, I said, front and back. Dated. Organized by month. 3 phases. My friends listed by name with strategies to remove them. My husband targeted. My business mapped out for takeover. I kept my voice level. I didn't raise it. I didn't shake, because this wasn't anger. This was the truth. And the truth doesn't need to shout. Margaret set down the last page. She looked at Sienna over the top of her glasses. I received your call last week, Margaret said. You told me Amara was closing down. You offered to take her project. My project. Sienna's face was the color of candle wax. I've been doing this for 40 years, Margaret said. I've seen ambitious people. I've seen competitive people. I've even seen dishonest people. But I've never seen someone write a manual for cruelty and keep it in their car. The editor was writing. I could hear her pen. I didn't look at her. I kept my eyes on Sienna. I trusted you, I said. I told you things I never told anyone. You used every single one of them. Sienna stood up. Her chair scraped the floor. The sound cut through the silence like a scratch on glass. You had no right to read that, she said. You had no right to write it. The room was so still I could hear the candle flickering. Sienna looked at Margaret. Margaret didn't blink. 70 years of watching people. She wasn't going to blink first. Sienna looked at the editor. The editor looked back with the expression of a woman who had just found next month's cover story. Sienna looked at the other clients. Teresa, the woman whose nursery I designed. The woman whose baby took her first steps in a room I built. Teresa shook her head. Just once. Slow. Sienna looked at me. And for 1 second, just one, I saw something real in her face. Not the smile, not the concern, not the practiced warmth. Fear. Pure, unfiltered fear. The fear of a woman who just realized that every door she planned to walk through was now locked. And the keys were sitting on a table in photocopied pages for everyone to read. She looked around the room, at the faces, at the pages, at the door. She chose the door. She didn't grab her coat. She didn't take her purse. She left it on the chair. A nice purse. Expensive. Probably bought with plans for my money. The door closed behind her. The room exhaled. Margaret removed her glasses, folded them, set them on the table next to the photocopied pages. Well, she said, that was better than dessert. The editor looked at me. Her pen had stopped. Are you okay? She asked. I thought about that question. The same question Jared asked in the kitchen with the cold chicken. The same question that made me cry the first time. Yes, I said. And this time I meant it. One of the other clients, a woman named Teresa, who I designed a nursery for, reached across the table and put her hand on mine. I got a call too, Teresa said. Last week. She told me you were burned out. She said she could finish my project. I looked at her. I didn't believe her, Teresa said. You finished my nursery while you had the flu. You don't burn out. You just burn. I laughed. It came out wet. Half laugh, half something else. The second client nodded. She called me too. Same story. Different details. I was going to ask you about it, but I wanted to hear it from you first. They all knew. Or at least they suspected. Sienna had been busy, making calls, laying groundwork, following the notebook step by step. But she hadn't counted on something. She hadn't counted on the fact that when you treat people well for 8 years, they don't believe the first stranger who tells them you've quit. Loyalty is hard to fake. And Sienna never learned that because she'd never earned it. She walked out of that restaurant and I never saw her again. Not in person. I heard things, The design community is small. Word travels. Word traveled fast that night. The editor published a story, not about the Whitfield estate, about what happened at that dinner. She called it The Designer Who Read the Room. She didn't use Sienna's name. She didn't need to. Everyone knew. The article went wide. Not viral. Design communities aren't that big, but big enough. People shared it in private groups, in email chains, at industry lunches. Someone told me they saw it printed out and pinned to a bulletin board at a design school downtown. I don't know if that's true, but I like thinking about it. Some student reading that story and learning a lesson that doesn't come from a textbook. The lesson isn't don't trust people. The lesson is when someone betrays you, you don't have to break. You can build. Within a month, Sienna's website was gone. Her social media accounts went private. She moved. I don't know where. I didn't look. I didn't care. What I cared about was the rest. The Whitfield project was finished 3 months later. It was beautiful. 6 bedrooms, each one a different mood. Margaret cried when she saw the library. Actual tears. You made my house breathe, she said. The magazine feature ran in the spring. Full spread. 8 pages. My name on every one of them. Cole Creative. The business didn't just survive. It grew. New clients came from the article. Old clients renewed. And they wanted to work with someone who had that kind of backbone. Backbone. That's what one client called it. I called it survival. But I'll take backbone. One woman called and said she found me because of the article. She said, I want to hire the designer who took down a con artist over bread and coffee. I said, it was actually over dessert and coffee. She laughed. I laughed. She became one of my best clients. Sometimes the worst chapter of your life becomes the best marketing you never planned. Rachel came back into my life like she'd never left. We picked up where we stopped, except now we talked about it, about the 2 years we lost, about the damage a lie can do when you don't know it's a lie. She came to the Whitfield reveal party. She stood in that library and said, I always told Sienna your work was incredible. Ihuga so ha she spilled her drink. Dina came back loud. Because Dina does everything loud. She showed up at my office with a bottle of champagne and a card that said, to the woman who brought receipts. She wasn't wrong. Kaiko came back quiet. The way Keiko does everything. She started dropping by again. She brought soup. She watered my plants. She sat on my couch and didn't say much, and it was perfect. One evening she brought jasmine candles. Set them on the table. Lit them without a word. I looked at her. I missed you, she said. I missed you too. Promise me something. Anything. If someone ever tells you I said something bad, call me first. Promise. She nodded. Blew out the match. The jasmine filled the room. The 4 of us had dinner the following week. Me, Rachel, Dina, Kaiko. No, Sienna. The first time in 3 years, no Sienna. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Sienna had passed Jared the salt and said she couldn't live without me. Rachel brought wine. Dina brought bread. Keiko brought flowers. Nobody brought a strategy. We talked for 4 hours. About everything. About the years we lost. About the things we believed that were never true. Didn't want to hear from us. At one point, Dina said, I have to admit something. We all looked at her. When Sienna first told me you were pulling away, I was relieved. Relieved? I said, because I thought, if you didn't want to be my friend, at least I had an answer. Not knowing is the worst part. Ali is terrible. But silence is worse. Rachel nodded. Kaiko nodded. I nodded. Because she was right. The silence was the cruelest part. Not the lies themselves. The space the lies created. The empty rooms between us that used to be full of laughter and soup and jasmine and wine. Sienna din Jasli. She built walls between us and convinced each of us that the other had laid the bricks. That's the genius of it. That's the evil of it. It's the same thing. Jared and I spent a weekend rebuilding what Sienna had cracked. Not with grand gestures, with small ones. He made me coffee in the morning. I left notes in his lunchbox. We went on a date that was just walking around and not talking about notebooks. We held hands like we hadn't in months. We stopped at the bakery downtown. The one with the good bread. He bought 2 loaves, even though we only needed one. One for dinner, he said. One for Saturday night, when we have a real meal with no cold chicken. I leaned into him, right there on the sidewalk, and I thought about how close I came to losing this. 6 months of doubt, 6 months of manufactured jealousy, 6 months of wondering if my husband was someone he never was. All because a woman with a green notebook decided my marriage was an obstacle to be removed. Jared isn't perfect. He leaves his socks everywhere. He explains things about engineering that I will never understand and don't need to understand. He once spent 4 hours comparing types of sandpaper and expected me to be impressed. But he is honest. He is steady. He is the man who held me in a kitchen with cold food and didn't ask why I waited 3 weeks. He just asked what I needed. I almost gave that up because of blue ink. I will never almost give that up again. One night he came home with a shelf. A big one. Oak. Hand sanded. Stained dark. I told you, he said. Biggest shelf you've ever seen. I put the magazine feature on it. And the first check I ever received, and a photo of me and my girls, Rachel, Dina, Kaiko, taken at the Whitfield party, all 4 of us, together again. My mom called on a Sunday, like she always does. How are you, baby? I'm good, Mom. I'm actually good. I know you are. Pause. Mom? Yes? How did you know about Sienna? Before I told you. You said you never liked her smile. Because I watch people, Amara. That's what 71 years teaches you. You watch. What did you see? I saw a woman who always said the right thing. Nobody always says the right thing. Real people stumble. Real friends say the wrong thing and apologize. Sienna never stumbled. I thought about that. She was right. There was a dinner party. Year 1, Sienna told a joke and everyone laughed. And I watched her face. Her eyes were scanning the room, counting laughs, measuring reactions. She wasn't enjoying the moment. She was grading it. I noticed. And then I unnoticed. Because that's what you do when someone is being nice to you. You file away the odd moments and focus on the good ones. You tell yourself you're being paranoid. You tell yourself not everyone has an angle. But some people do have an angle, and their angle has 37 pages. Trust your gut about people, Mom said. Your gut knew before your brain did. It just took a notebook to translate the feeling into words. She was right. I felt something off about Sienna. Early on, a moment here or there where the smile didn't match the situation, where the kindness felt rehearsed, where the question felt like research, but I ignored it because she was nice, because she showed up, because I wanted a best friend and she applied for the position with a perfect resume. Here's what I learned. A real friend doesn't have a strategy. A real friend stumbles. A real friend says the wrong thing at dinner and texts you at midnight to apologize. A real friend doesn't track your schedule and apologizes when she can't. A strategist studies you. A friend just likes you. There's a difference, and it's everything. I think about that a lot now. The difference between someone who asks how you are because they care and someone who asks how you are because they're collecting data. Rachel asks how I am and then doesn't listen to the answer because she's already pouring me wine. That's a real friend. She doesn't need my answer. She just wants me in the room. Dina asks how I am and then tells me I look tired and should sleep more. That's a real friend. She doesn't filter. She just says what she sees. Keiko asks how I am and then sits quietly until I'm ready to talk. That's a real friend. She doesn't push. She just waits. Sienna asked how I was and then waited for the answer like she was writing it down. Because she was. I want to say one more thing about the notebook. On the last page, page 37, the backside, Sienna had written something that wasn't part of the plan. It said, "When this is done, I'll finally have what she has. The business, the clients, the life that should have been mine. That should have been mine." That line tells you everything. Not about Sienna's strategy, about her soul. She looked at my life, a life I built from a measuring tape and a favor, a life I earned one client at a time, one late night at a time, one $400 check at a time, and she thought it should have been hers. She didn't want to build something. She wanted to take something, and she couldn't tell the difference between those two things. That's not ambition. That's not even jealousy. That's a hole in the shape of someone else's life. And no notebook in the world can fill it. I still have the photos of that notebook. All 37 pages, front and back, saved in a folder on my phone that I never open. I don't need to open it. I've memorized the parts that matter. A $2 notebook, green cover, spiral bound, containing a 3-year plan to take everything from a woman who'd built her life from a measuring tape and a favor. She didn't get anything. Not my friends. Not my husband. Not my business. Not my peace. She got a dinner and an exit. That's all. Some of you are listening to this and thinking about your own Sienna, someone in your life who always says the right thing, who never stumbles, whose smile starts in their brain. I'm not saying cut people off. I'm not saying don't trust anyone. I'm saying trust your gut. When something feels off, it usually is. And if you're sitting in a car right now, reading something you weren't supposed to find, here's my advice. First, breathe. I know your hands are shaking. Mine were too. Second, take photos. Every page. Front and back. Your hands will be shaking, but take the photos anyway. Third, put it back exactly where you found it. Don't let them know you know. Not yet. Your silence is your greatest weapon. They planned for your noise. They didn't plan for your quiet. Fourth, go inside. Make dinner. Wash the dishes. Act like the world didn't just shift under your feet. Fifth, call your mom. Or your person, whoever that is. The one who picks up on the first ring. The one who says, "What do you need?" before they say, "I'm sorry." And sixth, start your own plan. Not a plan for revenge. A plan for survival. A plan that protects what you built with your own 2 hands. Don't scream. Don't confront. Don't crumble. Build. I'm on my porch right now. The one with the creaky step and the rocking chair that needs a new coat of paint and the light that flickers when the wind blows. It's the porch where Mom drinks tea, where Jared reads the same book twice, where Rachel spills things and Dina complains about croutons and Keiko sits quiet and I feel full. The jasmine candle Keiko gave me is burning on the railing. Jared's inside, probably building something. Mom called an hour ago just to say goodnight. I've got my friends back. I've got my business. I've got my shelf full of proof that I built something real. And somewhere out there, in whatever city Sienna landed in, there's a woman with a $2 notebook and nothing to show for it. I'm not angry anymore. Not at her. Not at myself. You collect from yourself. I decided to stop paying. Sienna did a terrible thing. But I did a powerful thing. I read the plan. I didn't react. I didn't cry in public. I didn't burn anything down. I put the notebook back. I made dinner. I called my mom. I set up a company. I secured my work. I told my husband. I healed my marriage. I found my friends. I waited for the right moment. And then I told the truth in a room full of people who needed to hear it. That's not revenge. That's architecture. I design the outcome the same way I design a room. Every piece in the right place, every light at the right angle, every detail considered. Sienna had a plan. I had a better one. The difference is mine didn't require anyone else to lose. Mine just required the truth and a table to put it on. I'm just sitting here, on this porch, in the warm air, thinking about How strange it is that the worst thing that ever happened to me started with a phone charger that wasn't in the glove box. Whatever you found, whatever you're planning, come sit with me. Come sit with me again sometime. I'll leave the porch light on.